Holy shit, it is Unfuck the Poor, and I am your host, Joseph, and today I am joined by, well, who are you, Jessi?
I'm your little stepsister, Jessi, the youngest of all six of us.
That is correct. And so initially, I was going to call this episode "The Worst Father," but that the guy wasn't much of a father to either of us, was he? So
No.
if you at any point think of a better title for this episode, I am all over it.
How not to parent.
Jad,
I don't know. That works for me.
There are a lot of life lessons that we definitely could have gotten from this man. So this is, I'm going to give everybody the trigger warning for this episode, or the content warning. So this episode has basically a lot of content on child abuse, physical violence, sexual violence, and that sort of thing. So if that's not your deal, I encourage you to listen to an older podcast episode like Milton Friedman is an asshole or something like that. So anyway, the entire focus of this episode is my father and Jessi's stepfather, who was a colossal piece of shit. Jessi, would you agree with that?
Yes. I think that's putting it nicely.
There aren't enough harsh words for the man. There are very few people who, and this is just me personally, the whole prison system, I think, is kind of horrible, but I do think it is suitable for this man. He is exactly where he needs to be. So, so Jessi and I talked a little bit before the episode. I'm going to give everybody an idea of this man as I knew him before he came into Jessi's life, because it's important to note that the entire picture of this man makes sense, but the person that he became and the person that he was originally seem to me for a long time like they were just two separate things. But after a lot of introspection, I've realized no, they're actually just one long continuation of basically a fucking narcissist, a horrible, violent narcissist. All right, so Jessi, you and I have talked about this before. When I was a kid, always wanted a sister, and I don't know why that was, but I did write some notes down, and I have always identified more with girls than with boys. Also, when I was a kid, like I was never I didn't play sports. I was never into like football or anything. I had a lisp. I really liked perfume. And I didn't really, I did. I sprayed my mom's perfume on me one day, and I went over to my grandmother's.
Never knew this stuff about you.
And I gave her a hug, and she was like, "Are you wearing perfume?" And I like, oh my God, I got beat red, and I was like, no. I hugged my mom, and she was wearing it. Like, never. And so I grew up with two brothers, right, David and Daniel,
right?
And I learned how to be like a brother from them. But in general, like, boys are kind of assholes. Like, they like to fight and like all about sports. And that was never me, but I learned, so all that being said, I was not like a typical like boy. A lot of signs there indicated that I may be gay, which I was kind of effeminate. I'm still kind of flamboyant, like when I get going. But all that to say, all throughout my childhood, I faced some kind of rejection from my father. And a couple of things really, really stand out about like my early childhood recollection of him. One is he really did not like it when I showed him affection. I remember once, I think I was probably 7, and I kissed him, and he looked absolutely horrified. Now, for reference, my grandfather would always like hold up his face and like pat his cheek and like ask for a kiss. And that's like that's how you raise kids, right? Like with love. He just looked horrified. I'll never forget that look. Like when I kissed him, he was like, "What the fuck?" And also, I come to find out later, he did not like the sound of my voice. Like he just didn't like hearing me. And that is something that was
It's
like,
probably because it's not his voice.
oh, that is so true. Oh my God. That is a really good insight. Like I'm going to get into that a little bit later because he did not like kids just in general. And I don't think he liked other people either.
He doesn't like anybody he couldn't control.
That is apt. That is apt. And that his relationship with kids and like young people and like more diminutive people like my mother, that's a huge theme. So I got to tell you kind of like what I know about this asshole, like from his early life. So his mom, Joanne, she was married when she was 13 and she had him when she was 14. I tried to, when Joanne was older, I tried to introduce her to, our daughter and have more relationship with her. And I think she was sort of in and out of the hospital and had dementia and stuff like that a little bit. But that's all beside the point. She at one point told me a story about her, well, not her husband, I guess her husband, George, who was Pete's father, basically got her drunk on Jack and Coke. And she was 13, so I would say raped her. And yeah. And so she had him when she was 14, and yeah, and 14-year-old girls, not really cut out to be moms because they're still children. So Pete went and lived with his grandmother, and I don't know a whole lot about that except that he, like, even when we were kids, he was close. Like we would go and visit her in her apartment, and he did not have like a normal like family kind of relationship with her. It was very cold. Like he would just like, how are you doing? How is your health? Blah, blah, blah. Like never, he didn't talk to her like a human.
Yeah.
So at some point here, my brothers and I speculate he went to live on a farm with like his uncle or great grandfather or something. And he never talked about this, but we all think that this experience had a weird impact on him. Like he had to get up before sunrise and like milk cows and shit. And this was like him totally not in control. And we think there may have been like some physical abuse there, but we don't know. But this did have a very unique impact, I think, on his personality, which rewriting this and revisiting this is just fucking gross. But he had an interest in country music, except he hated classic country. He liked contemporary country, and because of that, he identified like as a cowboy. But
oh my God.
do you want to say something about that?
I swear to God, I remember when I was little. And okay, so growing up, I was only allowed to listen to country music. I got caught listening to Avril Lavigne when I was 15. I got grounded for 3 months because of that.
Are you serious?
But he would always like take my mother. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to listen to anything but country music.
God, that is so fucked. Please continue.
Yes. And then, but I remember when I was little, he'd always like, my mom would be like, oh, we're going out dancing. And it always like, he would always like his entire attire was like, I don't know, it was horrible, first of all, but
yes, it was.
It was like the worst 90s cowboy look ever. It was so bad.
So let's talk about Cowboy Pete, okay? So here's a weird thing about him. So he identified as a Texan more than a Tennessean, even though he was born and raised in Tennessee. And I think that's because his stepfather and Joanne moved to Galveston. And I think he just like adopted this Texas persona. And he, after he divorced our mother, that's when he really started. He like started wearing a cowboy hat, and he wore belt buckles, and he wore cowboy boots, and he took up line dancing, and he wore like bolo ties and all this shit. But he didn't do any other cowboy shit. Like he didn't drink. No, he didn't drink. He didn't chew tobacco, and he was somewhat fastidious. Like he was very particular about being clean. I don't know if that's something that. Now, like at the end, right before he was arrested, he was not a clean person.
Not the way I grew up. Yeah. That house was horrendous.
It was bad, and I'll be honest, that was a huge reason. Like we did not like going over there. I mean, that place,
I don't blame you.
It was a wreck. But when I was a kid, he was pretty clean cut. Even his beard was always like trimmed well, and he always tucked his shirt. Jesus Christ, he always tucked his shirt in. But even if he was wearing a t-shirt, and he would have the belt buckle, and so one of the driving motivators of my life is witness, like, because he was very tall and I was relatively short growing up. I was always like eye to eye with his gut just hanging over his
that spare tire hanging out there.
And and I was always like, I am never going to have that. Like, that is never going to happen. So his mother would come once a year, always around Christmas, and would shower him with gifts. So she would come in, show him all this love in the form of like trinkets and bullshit, and then she would leave. And this is very important. Christmas is very important, and we'll come back to it. But it also introduces a couple of things about his mom, because Joanne was always buying bullshit. Like when I was a kid, she would go to flea markets and buy boxes of like McDonald's Happy Meal toys. She had a room that was just Elvis memorabilia. Like
I helped her pack up to move once. I remember this distinctly.
Okay, so to be fair, the Elvis room,
all the fucking dolls. I hated the dolls. She had Furbies. Like, who has Furbies? Like, that shit is so damn creepy. It's not okay.
Who needs more than one fucking Furby? That lady did.
Well, they have to have somebody to talk to when they're trying to creep you out. Otherwise, it just gets weird.
So I gotta say, when they lived in Texas, I really liked her Elvis room because it was like she had it set up like a beauty parlor. So she had like a barber chair in there and like this big mirror with like all the light bulbs on it and like just a shitload of wigs. Like that lady loved wigs.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. That was like she also since she was like 50 or something had false teeth, like had dentures.
Oh, I knew that.
Yeah, then that was like wild. The first time I saw her take them out, I was like, I can take my teeth out too. Check this out. And I spent a solid few minutes trying to yank my teeth out. She was like, baby, you don't need to do that, baby. So his mother had a love of trinkets and buying useless shit. And in the last years of her life, she would go to the Dollar General, like right up the street from her place, and she would blow all of her Social Security check on garbage. And that is about all we know about his childhood. And so this man's name is Pete. That is actually a nickname. His real name is
It's not like shortened for anything. No. It's just a random ass name that decided.
This should tell you a little bit something about him. Yeah, this should tell you a little bit of something about how he was raised or how he was brought up. His name was George Oscar, George Oscar. And his grandmother hated that name, so she just called him Pete. She was like, nah. Which I get.
Yeah. She was the one raising him. Yeah. So
she was like, nah, this is a dumb name. You're Pete. So that's all we know. Somewhere around there, this little kid, George Oscar, became a fucked up individual named Pete, and he became my father. And I already mentioned that he was always distant, did not really show affection. He didn't really like me. And one of the earliest memories I have, we used to go to I cannot remember what type of church it was, but it was a super fundamentalist church. And anyway, I was like 4, and 4-year-olds do terribly in church, but they did not have Sunday school, like, so you had to sit in the pew. And so I'm like sitting on my mom's lap, and Daniel, who is the middle brother, was asleep in the pew. And I was like, well, I'm not allowed to sleep in church, so I'm going to wake him up. So I like reach over and I pluck his like...
I have to suffer, so does he.
Yeah, I pluck his top eyelid like this and I pull it open and then I just snap it. And then he doesn't wake up and I'm like, well, this is kind of fun. So I'm just sitting there like pulling his eyelid and snapping it. And for some reason, this pisses Pete off. And he drags me out of church and he takes me to the front steps of church or the, whatever. And I'm like, what did I do? And he was like, you need to sit down and be still and respect God. And I was like, okay, we can go back. I'll be quiet. And he was like, nope, you got to learn a lesson. And I was like, okay. So he proceeds to spank me on the front steps of the church. And this isn't, it's not a spanking. It is a beating. And I remember distinctly, like the first time he hit me, I was like, oh, that's a lot harder than I thought. And I was like, well, thank God it's only once. And then he just kept going. And I was like, what the absolute fuck? Like, I was in panic. And then I realized that it hurt. And I started crying. And I remember begging him while crying to stop. And again, 4 years old. And he said, I will stop when you stop crying. And that was the moment that I realized I hated my father. And so I took all of my energy and I sucked in all the crying, and it seriously felt like my ass was bleeding. And even thinking back on it so hard, I was like, did he take his belt off and start hitting me? And I don't think he did. He was just straight up hitting me with his hand. And this is one of my earliest memories of him, was basically having the shit beat out of me outside of church. That's one of the early key memories. So we'll move on to some other key memories as well.
You know what it is?
What?
Growing up, he and my mother both were obsessed with the way other people perceive them. They had to perceive them as a good Christian couple raising their family the right way. They were good people and good parents, and they were what people should strive to be. And if you fucked with that image, you got punished. Essentially.
You know what's so fucked up about that is I remember him and your mom only went to church that I recall twice. That
we stopped going when I was a kid, and you know what happened? You remember how we played soccer?
Yeah.
Well, he got way too fucking involved in that shit, and he decided he wanted to be on the board of the soccer club thing. I don't know, but he pissed off some people, and they went to that church, and so he's like, we can't go there anymore, and so we just stopped going to church, which I was fine with. But yeah,
what did he do to piss off these people?
I think he wanted to be president of the club, and they were like, no, somebody else should be, and that didn't sit well with it. I don't fucking know.
And to be fair, anybody else should have been president of the club. I mean,
literally,
not him,
because he was president for a little bit, and he was not good at it.
Oh, Jesus. So this man was not a God-fearing man, but he did very much. He did very much care about appearances. So I remember when I was a kid and I did get excited to see him, there was always a kind of rejection there. I remember he came home late one night and I was still awake, and I was asking where he was, and he came in, and I remember waving at him from my bed, asking him to come say goodnight. And he just he looked at me and he, put his hands together, that really cheesy, put your hands together and go to sleep deal. That's what he did to me. He put his hands on his face and pretended to close his eyes and then walked away. There was one time that I, listen, also this man could not be bothered to be a parent. Well, I remember once, here's what's funny about this is, so we lived in Texas, basically when I was 2 and 3, and we moved back to Tennessee when I was 4, and they got divorced when I was 5. So all of these memories that I have happened in a year. And that's something that really stuck out, because part of, you and I have talked about this, part of me healing, if you will, was writing out all of this shit. And when I was writing all of this out, that's when it hit me all of these fucking memories are from 1 year.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It is. He was
even one of them. Somebody would be like, "That's horrible," but then you've got this whole plethora of them.
Yeah, and so another normal kid experience: wetting the bed. I was 4. I wet the bed. I went and woke up my parents. I think my mom made him get out of bed, and I think that's what pissed him off. And his response was he went in there and he looked and he was like, ugh. And then he just went and got a sleeping bag and handed it to me. So, yeah. So then I went to
my bed broke when I was 16. Instead of buying me a new bed like a regular parent, I got a sleeping bag. I slept on the floor of my room for 9 months before I got a new bed.
What the fuck? I like that his solution to everything is camp out.
Be funny if his fat ass wasn't climbing into it all the damn time. It wouldn't have fucking broken.
Oh fuck.
Sorry.
I'm gonna laugh at that because that was
Go ahead.
All right, so that was that, and then another time I got in trouble for saying fuck, but it was my brothers who ratted me out. I had this like hand puppet. It was a moose. And I just, his name was Mr. Moose, and Mr. Moose had a foul mouth. And Mr. Moose was like,
damn it, Mr. Moose.
He was like, fuck. And my brothers were like, and they ran. And of course, they told my mom and dad. And this is also interesting. I remember this. They were in the living room, and they were never in the living room unless they were like having a very serious like conversation. Like that's the only time they spent time together. And this was all like leading up to a divorce. But I didn't know that. So I go in there and they tell him that, and I'm expecting to get beat. And he's just like, he doesn't know what to do. And like, obviously he's pissed off by my mom, but he doesn't want to like blow up in front of her. And he's like, stand in the corner. And I was like, okay. So I like back up and I stand in the corner, like just staring at him. Like my back is in the corner. And I'm just like, this is weird, but okay, here we go. And he's like, turn around. And so, and this is totally innocent because I'd never stood this was not a punishment I was familiar with. So I just like spin in a circle and I stop and I'm staring at him again with my back against the corner. And he's like, no, turn around and put your nose in the corner. So I'm like, okay. So I turn around, I face the corner and I'm like 2 feet away from it. So I bend all the way over and I stick and he's like, gets all huffy. He's like, just go to your room. And that was how I got out of standing in the corner, because I was an idiot.
But, just annoyed him until he didn't want to look at you anymore.
Yeah, exactly. My son can't even be disciplined. Another thing that really sticks out, and I brought this up with David. That's the oldest brother, and he didn't realize this. So when I was a kid, I just got dragged around everywhere because I didn't really do all the other stuff. So they went and did karate. When him in one of those fucking white robes, that's a sight. He was also really bad at it. So I would always get dragged to I would always get dragged to karate practice, and it would always be him in there with like some high schoolers doing high kicks or whatever. So, but I didn't do karate. So I just got dragged to the karate studio. And one time I got shots for kindergarten, and they put them in your thighs, both thighs. And I had a bad reaction to it, and I couldn't walk. And that didn't happen until like halfway through this karate lesson. And I remember thinking like, oh God, I can't walk. Like my legs really hurt. And I cannot interrupt the karate because he will be so pissed. And so I just sat there like a 5-year-old just sitting there like your legs don't work. And it feels like somebody has beat you in the legs. And
you're more scared of his reaction than of your legs not working.
Yeah. And then after their practice, I said, I can't walk to the car or the truck or whatever. And he was like, because I said that the shots hurt. And he was like, no, you can walk. You're fine. And it was like, it wasn't that like the place where I got the shots, like, I have a bruise there. It was like my entire legs were like, they barely worked. And this like really irritated him. Like, so I dragged my ass out to the car. I could not climb into the car. And then when I got home, I was like barely walking. And I do remember my mom recognized, like, why is he walking like that? And he was like, oh, he's just being a baby because he got shots. And she like looked at my legs and they were like swollen and red and stuff. And that was not a good look for the perfect father. So that was good. He was a fucking idiot.
It's funny. You think as a fucking paramedic, he'd have known that shit.
And that's another thing because he also really liked it when we got hurt. He thought that was the funniest shit. And it was like he was a fucking paramedic and he had zero compassion. We also would go to like, this is really fun. We'd also go to karate events like tournaments. And David was really good. And Daniel was like, he would get in there and he would fight or whatever. But Pete would go in and he would like, David tells this. So here's the thing. I never did karate. So I just had to sit in the bleachers the entire time. And I would like roll around because I'm like 5 or 6. It was and you just spend 8 or 9 hours just sitting there like nothing. I don't know where anybody is, but David tells this story. He's in a match, and his opponent like gets him across the face with a foot, and he bursts out screaming, and he holds his nose, and he starts rolling around on the mat, yelling that his nose is broken. And so like a medic comes up and like starts checking him out, and he's not bleeding or anything, but he's like over there crying and rolling around. And he thinks he's going to get like a point for, whatever. And David says he's watching like, in the audience, and he just like, oh, that's my dad. And he like backs up and like just walks away from the tournament. Like he's a fucking embarrassing man.
Yeah.
He would also take us, instead of taking time off work, he would take us to like the rescue squad and stuff, and that's where we would stay at night, which is super weird. And his idea of taking us to do stuff was like taking us to like motocross events or like dirt bike stuff and like BMX stuff in the ambulance, but we weren't allowed to go anywhere and like do anything. So we had to sit in the fucking ambulance while like all these kids are like having fun, and there's like I mean, it's fucking motocross. There's like hot dogs. There's like concessions. There's like kids in bleachers. There's guys doing fucking wheelies in the dirt. Like it looks fucking awesome, and we just have to sit there like in the ambulance, like twiddling our fucking thumbs. So I got dragged around a lot. There was also okay. All right. This is. I'm sorry. I am really enjoying reliving just how shitty this was. We're not comparing, but this is
no. It's you were treated shittily too. Shittily? I don't know if that's a word.
Oh, shittily is shittily is a perfect description.
It's unfuck the poor. We can say shittily.
Exactly. Let me ask you a question. Did you ever hear of one of his friends named Beth? Did you ever hear that name?
Did I ever hear what?
One of his friends named Beth.
No.
Okay. After my parents got divorced, he had a friend named Beth, and she lived out in the country, and she had two kids. They were both in high school, and we started going over there a lot. And it was weird because like they weren't dating, but she was very pretty. Beth was very pretty. I remember that. And she was divorced, but Pete was going over there and like doing free work on her house. And he was actually like refinishing her wood floors, but he didn't really know what he was doing, and he was using like a hand sander. And so we went out there a lot, like for months while he was doing this. And then I think it was like, I think he did like her, but he didn't know how to like, so he just like was around a lot, and she would like invite us to stuff. And one time she invited us over to play volleyball. So Pete, the man, the cowboy, wearing a white t-shirt, black jean shorts, a belt buckle, knee-high socks, and the shitty Nikes that he always wore.
Cool. I bet he thought he looked good too.
He did. And so it was like he was one of two adults. Beth was the other adult, and it was the rest of us. We were all kids. It was me and David and Daniel, and then like Beth's kids and like some like high school or middle school girls. And so he's like, he really wants to show off. And I've never played volleyball before, but I am on his team, and he like tells me to stand in a place and then hit the ball. And ball comes to me, I hit it, and it goes off into the woods or something. And he just starts fucking yelling. Like,
oh my God.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? Well, that was the other thing. He never really cussed. He just got really loud.
He'd tower over you and yell down.
Yep. That was, yeah.
He had to have his face like right over yours. Make you feel as small as possible.
Yep. And so that was, yeah. So he could not believe that I didn't know how to play volleyball. And he like berated me in front of everybody, and he like pointed like at this. He was like, just go sit over there. And so I went and sat over there. And I remember like just watching him play. I was like, you look so fucking stupid. Yeah. So, and luckily, my mom divorced him. And I want to tell you about the day he announced that they got a divorce. So they call us into the living room, and Pete looks very serious, and my mom just looks kind of irritated. And he says, well, boys, I'm sorry to tell you, but your mother and I are getting a divorce. And I had just had a friend, Jordy, whose parents had gotten divorced. And so I knew how this worked. And I was like, well, sounds like you're going to have a new address. And then I walked out. I was very excited for this divorce. This was like the most welcome thing ever. And everybody else was like very solemn. And I was like, fuck this. I'm going outside. I got a bike. I got like a brand new Schwinn. And this is another thing. He did not teach me how to ride a bike.
No.
That day was the day I learned how to ride a bike because it had training wheels on it. And I'd been asking to have them taken off like forever. And he finally took them off and never really taught me how to ride it. And so that day I was like, well, I got a bunch of free time. This looks like a shit show. So I go out to like the field next to our house and I start like hopping on the bike and like, you know, hopping off. And I don't think anything about this. I'm just like, yep, my parents are divorced now. That's cool. And so I'm like hopping off. And I finally get it. And I'm riding down the field and I'm like, holy shit. I am the smartest 5-year-old. Holy fuck, riding a bike is the best. And so I like throw my bike down and I run inside. And I remember I threw open the door and I was like, Mom. And I'm going through the house and she's like nowhere. And I hear Pete talking and I hear my brother crying. And I go into David's room and David is very upset. And Pete is trying to be a father and like talking to him. And I like lean in the door and I'm like, where's Mom? And Pete's like, she went to your grandparents. And I was like, and then he said, do you need anything? And I just said, no. And I walked away. And then I went over to my grandparents' house and I did not understand why no one was excited about me learning to ride a bike. I was like, all right, we got divorce on one hand. I can ride a bike on the other. This is the best day. Everybody should be so excited for everybody. This is like a big day for all of us. Divorce, bike ride, everything. So I was super happy that day. Parents are divorced. He moves out or something. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. But one day, I remember very distinctly. I was walking from my bedroom. I was going to go watch TV, and I walked into the living room, and I heard his truck. And that's one of those things. When you grow up in a bad household, you know exactly what the asshole parent's car sounds like. And I remember I heard his truck in the driveway and I froze and I was like, what the fuck? And I look outside and it's him and he comes up to the door and he knocks and I open it and I just say, what are you doing here? He's like, well, I came to get some of my stuff. And I like opened the door for him and I was like, okay, come on and get it. And I really appreciate that about me being a 5-year-old, that I was just like, I did not try to spare his feet. Like I did not like him because I knew he didn't like me. And I think it really ate at him that I just did not give a shit about him. So they got divorced. There's some years there. He got remarried, which I'm not even going to get into. I have it written down right here. Just remarried. He got remarried to a lady that he met online. She had a daughter. And I'll tell you this, she was a couple years younger than me and he did not abuse her, but he was an asshole to her. And the one thing that sticks out in my head is he had grilled some burgers, which, as you know, were fucking gross.
Yeah, but can't tell him that. He's the best fucking chef in the world.
Well, they were never good. And you always had to like cover them in ketchup anyway. So he had made burgers and she didn't like it. And she asked if she could spit it out. And this like really struck a nerve. And that's when he started to like yell. And I had not heard him yell like that since I was probably her age, like 4 or 5. And I just remember him screaming, swallow it, swallow it, swallow it. And her mother, whose name was Nicole, to this day is the only person I've ever witnessed just put him in his place. She was like, she's not eating the fucking burger. Girl, you can spit it out. And spit it out. And then she was like, you can go to your room. And then she gets up and leaves. And Nicole looks at me and is like, you can go outside. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And I left. And they got a divorce shortly after that.
Good. Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah, you don't fuck with Nicole. Nicole is...
It's funny. When I was a teenager, my sister, I don't know who contacted who, but she actually, your old stepsister, the one that he was yelling at that story, she friended us on like MySpace, because this was way back when we had MySpace. That was the thing to have. And we actually like talked like a lot. And it was weird because I had no idea he was married to anybody other than, my mom and your mom. I had no idea about any of this. And then my sister's like, hey, do you know that he used to have another stepdaughter? And I'm like, what? And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh God, it's another victim. But she said it was never like that. And it wasn't that bad. But now that you're telling me she was that young when they were married, it occurred to me that since it wasn't like a very long thing that happened in her life, she probably didn't view it as him being that bad.
No, it was a very brief marriage. And so to give you and also the listeners some sort of idea of how I grew up, he married Nicole at the trailer park. He married her at the trailer park, the guest house of the trailer park, which was like basically it just looked like a big suburban white house with like columns. It was supposed to look like a plantation home or something, but it was a trailer park. And it was a Nashville country themed wedding, and we all wore bolo ties and our little cowboy boots and our little cowboy hats, and it was a very much a trailer park wedding. So then they were married maybe a year, probably less. So yeah, it does not surprise me that she doesn't remember anything.
Yeah.
But I am sort of curious, like, what did y'all talk about when y'all met online?
I don't know. She was older than us, obviously, but I think she was living out in California, and my sister talked to her more than I did. But I think it was just like Laura and her talked a lot. I say we talked a lot, but I talked to her a couple of times. Laura was the one that mainly talked to her, and for the listeners, Laura's our other sister. But yeah, no, like it was. I guess she talked a little bit about Pete and how it wasn't that bad. I think Laura was trying to find like somebody she could talk to about things. And she was, I guess she kind of felt like, Laura kind of felt like she wasn't getting that. So she kept trying, even though there wasn't anything to get from it. But no, we just, I don't know. She was like, it wasn't that bad. I'm in California. College was fun, all that kind of stuff. So, like, it was small talk for me and her, but I think my sister and her got into the deeper stuff.
It's probably good that she blocked that out, because that, I imagine, for a kid would have been weird, because they were from California and they met online, and she moved with her daughter out to Tennessee to be with this dude that she never met, and this was like in '94. So I imagine that was weird for them. Yeah. Okay. So then we meet your mom, because Pete and her are dating, and they get engaged and married, and this is 1997, and I am excited because now I get to have two sisters. I get to have sisters again, because he got divorced and the sister went away and we never heard from them again, and so we meet Jonathan, Jessica, and Laura. I'll give some context here as well. So from the start, when they got married, it felt like he didn't want us to be one family unit. Like, he didn't want us to really be brothers and sisters. And I was in middle school anyway. I was in 7th grade. And this was also around the time when I grew up already, like, feeling like he didn't like me. I didn't like him very much. And this was really like when I saw, like, kind of just the decline of him being any sort of father figure in my life. Like, I started spending more time with my grandparents. My grandfather raised me more. Like, things just switched completely. Like, this was just a dude that I had to see every once in a while. And so there were some weird things, looking back on it. I'll turn over to you in a minute, but I will bring up a few of the weird things that came up that now stick out as odd. But I do remember when I was in 8th or 9th grade, he gave us all laptops that he bought off eBay. And mine had nude photos on it of some woman. And these were like computers that he had bought on eBay. They were broken. They didn't work. And he fixed them because he was a fucking computer whiz. He was a fucking hacker is what he was. Did he ever tell you that he hacked into NORAD? Did he ever tell you that?
No.
Oh yeah, but he totally did, because that's how good he was at computers. He hacked, and he was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." And we were like, "I don't think you did that." Anyway,
yeah, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be standing in front of us if you did.
No. So, but I will say this. He gave me this computer, and I found nude photos of a woman on it, and there is no way this man gave me a computer with any information on it that he didn't know already existed. And I really feel like that was purposeful. Like, he gave me this laptop with pictures on it. And it really felt like he wanted me to bring it up to him. And so I just pretended that I didn't see him. And anyway, for what it's worth, as like an 8th grader, that was a pretty good surprise to find. I mean, but
I get that.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that he wanted you to bring it up to him, because Jonathan mentioned like when he was in 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade, Pete, like, I think he like caught him like with a Playboy or something, and literally showed him how to surf the net for porn with young girls, not young girls, but like teenage girls on it. That's how my brother learned how to look for porn on the internet.
This is something that I have never heard before. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a pin in that, but I'm gonna come right back to that. There was that computer, and then also his desktop computer had his screensaver was the Olsen twins.
Oh my God. I swear to God, it was either the Olsen twins or Kathy Ireland in a thong bikini.
You are correct. Kathy Ireland was in the mix too.
Yep.
And so that was odd. There were also moments that I remember now, and even then, that were pretty obvious abuse. Just like as a parent, I remember this was super weird. We were going to CC's Pizza or something like that, and Jonathan had quote unquote behavior problems. He didn't. He was like a normal kid. But they acted like
he had ADHD,
which Daniel did too. I mean, it was anyway. They treated him like he was a problem, and they didn't know how to deal with him. And I remember your mom got almost like giddy. She was like, "Oh, we figured out how to deal with Jonathan," and we were like, "Oh, what is it?" And she was like, "Oh, Pete acts like a drill sergeant, and Jonathan really responds to it." And she was like, "Do you want to see?" And we were like, "Nope, we do not." And he proceeded to... Another thing you have to know about this man, when he yells, it is fucking loud. Like, it comes all the way from his asshole, through his diaphragm, out his throat, and then out his mouth. Like, he uses the entirety of his digestive system to get sound out of his body. And it was fucking... When I was a kid, it rattled the fucking windows and doors. Like, he was fucking loud. And so we're in a parking lot, in a public place, in the middle of the day, and he starts yelling at Jonathan to drop and start doing push-ups. And it is fucking hot outside. And Jonathan is on asphalt doing push-ups. And we're like, okay, we get it. Okay, we got it. Okay, Jonathan, let's go get pizza. And he just like made him do like 20 push-ups in the parking lot. And like the two or three weird things about this. One, we're like trying to like just move into the building. Two, Pete is like the more that you can tell Jonathan is like humiliated, like the more power, like you could just see in like Pete's eyes, like, oh, this is fucking incredible. I hate this kid. And then also like your mom had this really weird grin on her face, and all of that just really fucked me up.
Let me just point out real quickly, my mom is not like your mom, okay? My mom is also a narcissist and completely fucking delusional and should probably be in prison right alongside Pete.
That's another thing that I want to talk about, because it really does seem like she should be. The very last thing I'll say, the reason that I think he wanted us not to be brother and sister, is he created this really weird myth about me that I hated Barbies and I wouldn't play with y'all because y'all had Barbies.
I don't even remember that. I remember you sitting down on the floor and letting us play with your hair. Like if any of our brothers would have played with Barbies with us, it was you.
Yeah, exactly. And he was always like, "Oh, Joseph does not play with Barbies. Joseph hates Barbies. He will not play Barbies with you." And I was like, I don't know, man. I kind of play with everything. Like I don't really care. And that was part of when I was in high school, part of the reason that I let y'all play with my hair all the time is because I knew it just fucking drove him crazy. Like to watch me have my hair braided and shit and put in like, because we
love that. We look forward to you coming over just so we could do that, because from our perspective, he put y'all on a pedestal. Like he told us you were like picking locks at like 3 years old so you could go outside and ride your tricycle. Like you guys were geniuses and amazing kids, and we just could not live up to you guys. So I think part of us not being close was him trying to make us feel like we weren't good enough so that he could keep us under his control.
Yeah, and the thing on our end was like he's just straight up didn't invite us to stuff like that y'all were doing. I know we went to I remember distinctly going to one football game that Jonathan played, and I think one soccer game that y'all played. But other than that, it was like, nope, we can't do anything this weekend. The girls have a game. It was never like, we're doing a game this weekend. Y'all should come. It was never. He was just like, nope, we can't do anything. We're going to a game. And it was just like cutting us out. And it's so funny that
he kept us separated, probably so we wouldn't get close enough to tell you what was going on too.
Yeah, it's funny that that's what he was trying to get out of that story, because obviously, like, at some point I probably did sneak out of the house to ride my bike, but instead of like, oh, we didn't lock the doors, it was, oh my God, this kid's a fucking genius and he let himself. No, y'all just weren't paying attention. That's what happened.
Yeah, he can't have responsibility in that situation. That would make him not perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And also he did not like us, or I never felt any kind of like respect or love from him. So it's so funny that he would like, these kids are so smart. This kid's like, no,
See, we thought you guys weren't around because your mother kept you guys from him, which in my head, I would be like, good for her. She should fucking keep him away from him at all times. But I mean, like, that's why I thought y'all were never around when we were kids, is because your mother. And that's why I apologized to your mother recently, because I was like, I don't know if I was ever mean to you or anything. I don't think I was, but I know I didn't view you in a good light, and it's because of that.
And, for what it's worth, she said, nope, I don't think she ever was anything but nice to us. But you really did make her day when you said that. Probably because it's like one of those instances of somebody like coming out as a good person on the other side of his whole deal. But yeah, she really thought a lot of that when you told her that.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, I want to tell you, I made too many notes.
It's okay.
Is what happened. All right, we got to go through some of these stories, because I'm still trying to paint a picture. I think we're getting to the picture, but we still got some more stories to share. So do you remember the paddle?
He hung that on the wall in his office.
Yeah.
We thought it was from his college days. Yeah.
And here's the funny thing about that is he was in college. He was never in a frat. And he never graduated college either.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. David, who got beat with the paddle, and here for the audience, you should know that this paddle was probably about 2 feet long, and it was like carved with, I forget what the Greek letters were, but it was clearly a frat paddle, and it was signed by
wood.
Yeah, and it was signed by all the frat members except, and this is what so fucking weird. It was signed by all the frat members except Pete's name wasn't on it. Right?
He probably stole it.
He probably fucking stole it. But then why wouldn't you put your fucking name on it? Right? Like,
he's not the smartest man in the world,
not.
Regardless of what he would like people to believe.
So yeah, the paddle was like this like power symbol for him, and he did used to beat the shit out of David with it. Luckily he I don't know, he didn't do that with us, or with me and Daniel at least, but David got the brunt of it. So all of this to bring us to our core point, this man does not like children. He does not like them. Mentioned the paddle. He really liked beating kids. He really liked yelling at us. I mentioned he liked to laugh at us when we got hurt. And then we also need to come back to Christmas, because this is a central theme in this man's life.
I fucking hate Christmas.
I am not allowed to hate Christmas, and I'll tell you why. Because Christmas is Anna's favorite holiday, but growing up, Christmas, I fucking hated it. Every year I was like, not fucking again. No, I cannot do another fucking Christmas. I have come out of the other side on that, and I do genuinely enjoy it now, because it is completely different from all the Christmases I had growing up. So when we were growing up, Christmas was never about the kids, right?
Fuck no.
It was always about Pete. Like, Christmas when you're a parent is all about the kids and only about the kids. Like, kids give you a stupid shitty gift. Holy shit, it is the best gift ever. I love any gift my daughter gives me.
It's the best thing ever.
I love seeing her face when she opens a gift. I don't care Like if the day before she was like rolling her eyes at me and like being a jerk or whatever, like on Christmas morning she opens a gift that she's wanted and she's like super happy. That's what parents live for.
Mm-hmm.
But not this man. Christmas was all about Pete and his fucking decorations, which were the
I hate it. I don't decorate. My son wants to decorate for Halloween and Christmas, and I refuse. I refuse because I'm like, I have decorated enough for this holiday in my life. I will not do it again. Wasted enough of my life doing that shit.
You know those houses that where you like you go and they're like synchronized to the radio and they put on these awesome like light shows. That is what my father saw in his head when he decorated the house. But that it was not reality.
It's like if a kindergartner tried to draw the Mona Lisa. Is what it was.
Yeah, you would get a face, right? You would get two eyes and a mouth and probably some hair. And that's about where the similarities would end.
But do you know why it was like that? Because the kids did all the fucking work. We were the ones doing it.
Yeah, that's why it looks so shitty.
Yeah.
Okay. One of my prouder moments, as an adult now, he made us get on the roof of that house that y'all lived in, the house, to hang like these icicle lights from the roof. And so I had like crawled out of like this dormer window and had crawled across, and I was pissed because it was cold and I fucking hated decorations anyway. But I had a hammer. And I had some nails, and I had to lean over. Okay, I had to lean over the edge of the roof, like on the very peak of the roof, to like nail this shit up. And Pete's like up there, like, yeah, nail it there. And I was like, I don't know, 13, 14. And listen, I've been hammering nails my entire life. Like that's like all my grandfather taught me how to do was hammer nails. Like I felt super comfortable up there. I was just pissed because I didn't want to do it. And I just remember up there, like I got the nail like stuck in a little bit. And then I just started beating like all the trim around like the roof. Like, I can't get it. I beat the shit out of it. And then I was like, oh, there we go. And then I just did that the whole way. I beat the shit out of siding all the way down.
That's funny. I have a story about that too. It's actually why I'm afraid of heights.
Oh, please.
I used to love going up on the roof and thinking, and then I was about 13 and I had to hang the fucking icicle lights on that nail that you so eloquently put into the side of our house. And he had this long pole with a hook on the end that he would hand the lights up to me while I'm on the edge of the roof. And I'm sitting up there and I'm waiting for him to hand it to me so I can lay down and like get it and stuff. And I reach for it and I'm kind of leaning, but not enough. And right when I'm about to grab it, the fucker jerks it out of my reach. And I almost fell off the very top of our roof. And now I'm terrified of heights.
Because he hates children. And I bet he thought that shit was hilarious.
Oh, he did. He laughed his ass off. I was up there crying and like, I can't move. Get me down. No, he's just laughing his ass off.
So when the Christmas decorations were up, it's important to know that he had an amazing collection of lights from like the 70s and the 80s and the night, and they were all shitty. Okay. And when he lived in the trailer park, he had this vision for like doing a runway on the roof of his trailer. And he did it. He like got up there and he put the, Santa land here or whatever. And so we're like helping him put out Christmas lights. And I think I've made enough of a point. The motherfucker had a temper and he yelled. And he really liked Christmas. So I stepped on a light on one of the strings and I was like petrified. I was like, holy shit, I cannot tell. I broke his precious lights. And so I lied and I said a dog ran up and stepped on it. And that's dumb because they're all around. Obviously no dog came and did it. And they knew I was lying. And he thought it was funny that I was lying about it. And he was like, why didn't you just tell me that you stepped on it? And in my head, I was thinking like, motherfucker, you would lose your shit if I broke. Like, anyway, I think he got satisfaction out of me like being afraid to tell him. I think that was enough for him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you two stories and then I'm done because I think we're getting to the full picture here. Okay. All right. So Christmas.
This episode's going to be a two-parter.
It is actually. I've already planned that. I've already planned this ahead. We're gonna do the whole thing, and then I'm gonna split it into two, and it's gonna be two. It's gonna be great. All right, so I'm gonna tell you the story about the train set because I didn't realize this was a story until maybe a year ago. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, oh no, this is a fucking story. Okay, growing up in our house in Murfreesboro after the divorce, we had this garage shed behind our house, and it was always full of shit. Like, we just could not throw shit away. We had like old lawnmowers and shit. Like, this thing was packed. Okay. And that was like mine and my brother's safe space. Like, we would go in there and just like, we would like paint our models and like just hang out in there. And like, there was nothing special. It just smelled like old paint and gas. Like, that's all it was. But in the very, very back on a shelf was this very, very large box, and it was a train set box, and it had always been there. And I just remember thinking like, oh, like that's a train set box for years. That's all I thought. And one day, finally, I was like, I wonder what's in the train set box. And so I go in there and I crawl over all the shit that's in the garage to get to it. I pull it out and I open it, and holy shit, it is an entire train set, like never touched. And I was like, what the fuck did I just find? And I pull it out and I set it on top of some shit, and I wait for my mom to come home. And she comes home and I'm like, Mom, did you know that we have a train set in the garage? And you can see like the wheels turning in her head. Like, why do we have a train set? And she goes, oh yeah. Yeah. Your father put it in there. He bought it for David and Daniel for Christmas, and they found it under the bed, and he got really pissed and didn't want to give it to them. So he put it out in the garage and refused to give it to them for Christmas, and he never gave it to them. And I was like, man, that really sucks that he did that to them. Can I have the train set? And she just says, oh yeah, you can have it. And I was like, oh fuck yeah, free train set. This like train set, like for a whole year, like I wound up putting it in like a big plastic bucket, and I would like carry it to my grandpa. I would always like put it to me, and my brothers played with it. Like, it went everywhere with us. Okay. But, I was like like every little boy wants a train set. I don't know why. Trains are fucking awesome. So, all right. So I learned this story about this train. And the next time, like, I get it out and I play with it, and the next time that we go over to Pete, well, like when he picks us up, I am like, you know, in my head, I'm like, this is a really good opportunity. I'll just, hey Dad, guess what I got? And he's like, hey, what did you get? And I said, I got a train set. And he was like, oh, you did? Where'd you get a train set? And I said, oh, I found it in the garage. It was a whole train set. Can you believe it? I got it out. I've been playing with it. Can you, just a whole train set. And I remember like his hands on the steering wheel, like got really tight, and he was like clenching his jaws, and he like I was reliving like, these fucking kids don't deserve a train set. Like, I could see it in his eyes. And oh man, that made me so fucking happy knowing that it was like, because he couldn't say shit because I had it, because I was playing with it. He couldn't do jack shit about it. Oh my God, that made me so happy. Just seeing that look.
I love how much of a little shit you were just to piss him off.
It did not get better. I'll tell you that. Because the last story I'm going to tell you is like as close to as an adult as I can get fucking with him. Okay. So, you know, he used to teach CPR, and he used to teach it at our high school, which is problematic, as we will learn.
They could probably guess that from the previous stories.
Yeah, probably. So he was on campus like once or twice a week, and I think a normal parent who was like in the same area as their kid would be like, hey, we should like hang out. You know, I'll be at your school. We should eat lunch together. Like, maybe once he would do that. Never. He would never tell us that he was there. I was on my way to art class, and this was actually in the building where like shop and ag and like nursing and stuff. Like there was a physical science, like nursing type lab in there. And so he was teaching CPR in there, and I saw him, and I was walking with my friend Mac, and I like nudged him, and I was like, hey, watch this. And I walked up to Pete, and I was like, Dad, hey. And he looked like I caught him in the middle of doing something. He like stood up really straight, and he was like, hey, Joseph. And I was like, Dad, it was great to see you. I was like, I'm on my way to art class, and what are you teaching CPR? What are you doing? And he's like, yeah, I gotta go to this class now. And I was like, yeah, I gotta get to class too. And I reach in and I hug him. Okay. And he is stiff as a board, does not hug me back. Take my hands off. And I'm like, all right, bye, Dad. I say it really loud because, you know, he's embarrassed to have kids. And I go back to my friend Mac, and he was like, what the fuck was that? And I was like, oh, he fucking hates me. I was like, I ruined his day by hugging him. I was like, it was totally worth it. But this guy fucking hates me. Okay. All right. So
That's awesome.
that was it. And oh, look, I even made a note on my notes. It says, let's dog shit on his Christmas decorations. We already did that. Okay. And so, Jessi, that is where.
I hate it. I hate Christmas.
So, Jessi, that's where my notes end. And so I think we've painted a picture of this problematic man who didn't really raise me, but was around and had a not good impact on me. It's worth noting now, I think, that the last several years of our relationship have not been much of a relationship. And that is completely on my end because you've been an amazing sister. And it has taken a lot for me to be able to get in the headspace where I can actually say, yeah, my sister is awesome and she has been through shit. And she and I, again, I've already told you in private, I will say it, I will testimony here. You're one of the bravest and most badass people that I know. And I'm really proud that you're my sister. And with that, I will say, what was your experience like with this asshole?
Well, thank you for those awesome words. And honestly, I don't blame you at all for us not being close. It's hard when we live in a couple hours apart, and honestly, we weren't really close before. So, and then I dropped that big bombshell on y'all when I decided to press charges. And I mean, I understand how blindsided y'all could have felt and how it would take a few years to get your minds around it. So I don't blame you at all. Hold on. I got to text my husband real quick. I'm so sorry. I'm watching my nephew tonight and my sister's on the way. Our sister. See, it's still weird to me. I still do that. I'll be like, oh, my brother, my sister, talking about Jonathan and Laura to you guys like you're complete fucking strangers. And it's weird because when I talk about you guys, I'm like my brothers. But when I talk to you guys, I still separate us in my head. I hate that. We're going to get past that.
We are.
I'm going to get past it. Where were we? I got distracted.
We have just established that George Oscar is a terrible person, or is at least he's not a good father. And I never really considered him much of a father, and he is indeed an asshole. And I know that much about him at this point in mine and your relationship. But a few years ago, how long ago has this been now? When did you call me?
7 years.
7 years. 7 years ago, you called me, and I was in the middle of tiling my upstairs shower. And after we got off the phone, I proceeded to get really drunk and finished tiling that shower. And then when I woke up the next day, I realized that I had to tear all the tile out and redo it because I was so drunk when I tiled it. So what did you call me about 7 years ago?
I called you, and I want you to know I was terrified to tell you guys. The reason I didn't want to tell you guys, I didn't think you would judge me or not support me. I just knew it would fuck you guys up, and I didn't want that to happen, especially Daniel with him being a police officer. That was really, really scary for me. But what I called to tell you was that I was pressing charges against your father for sexually abusing me as a child. I had already gone to the police at that point, and it was moving forward because when I went to the police, part of me didn't believe that they would believe me because he had beaten it into our heads that nobody would believe us, that he was an upstanding pillar of the community and they would take his word over ours. And we believed that because he was a paramedic, he knew cops, he knew he was a member of the community that was, connected. And it scared us to tell anyone. But I went up to, okay, this all started, hold on, I'm gonna backtrack to when I was 19. I had just had my son. He was 8 months old, and I came up to for Christmas because I wanted to see you and Daniel and David. That was and I know you guys would be there at Christmas. So I wanted to come up for Christmas, and I got there the day before y'all were supposed to have a Christmas dinner. And I ended up telling my mother, we ended up getting into an argument. First of all, I went into that house and it was fucking disgusting. And he yelled at me for trying to clean it. But I was like, I can't let my son out of his car seat to crawl on your nasty ass floor because there's cat litter and cat shit and cat piss everywhere. Fuck off. I'm going to clean for my kid's sake. But sorry, that was off topic. But I ended up getting into a fight with my mother, and she was pissed that I went to live with my dad because I couldn't take it in that house anymore. And Pete had already kicked me out twice. And so I called my dad the first time it happened, and his girlfriend wouldn't let me move in. And then the second time, I was like, I literally cannot work this out. I cannot stay here. I will be homeless. And he's like, well, fuck this bitch. I'll sell my motorcycle. We'll get a place. It's cool. Come on down. But I went and I was living with my dad. And my mother was already mad at me because she wasn't as involved in my son's life as she wanted to be. She wanted to be there for his birth, and I would not let her. And so when we were arguing, she accused my father of molesting me. And something inside of me just kind of snapped. And I said, no, it wasn't my dad. It was your husband. And essentially, she called me a whore at the end. Well, she denied it at first, and then she called me a whore and told me I deserved everything he ever did to me. And that was about the last of my relationship with my mother. I tried to keep a relationship with her for the sake of Jonathan and Laura, but I couldn't do it. But that's neither here nor there. But I remember I was so scared of Pete coming home and her saying what I said, telling him what I said, and him doing something to like seriously fuck me or my son up. I ended up going to a friend of mine's house, and I called my dad, and he had told me when I was going up there, he said, don't call me. I don't have the money or to put in the gas tank to come get you from Murfreesboro. But I ended up calling him, and he ended up coming. And he's like, I need to know why you're leaving right now, why you couldn't get a ride back, what's going on. And I refused to tell him until we were halfway back, and I knew he didn't have the money or the gas to go back and kill Pete. And I told him, I was like, my mom accused you of molesting me. And I told her it wasn't you, it was her husband. And my dad got real, real quiet. And I could see, like, I could physically see on his face, his heart was like shattering. And I could see the rage and the want to kill somebody, you know. And he was good. He was for the most part, but he really wanted me to press charges, and I couldn't do it. I was too scared. I wasn't in a place that I could do that.
Well, this is Unfuck the Poor, and this was the first of 3 episodes that I did with my sister Jessi. These are going to be some hard episodes to listen to, but they are important, and I appreciate you listening. I also really appreciate my sister Jessi for sitting down for 3 hours to talk to me. I appreciate her bravery, her openness, and as always, her love.